Hello, my name is Nigel, and today we're going to take a walkthrough of the WPCloud Deploy plugin. On the screen you could see what is basically a standard WP admin area. It's been stylized a bit with a commercially available product or commercially available admin team called Slate Pro. It's relatively popular and you can pick that up. I believe it's on CodeCanyon or Envato or one of those related companies. We like it because it's clean and it renders WP admin in a way that's very, very pleasing to our eyes. You can, of course, pick any admin team you like, but that's not the point of today's walkthrough. What we're going to be showing you today is how WP admin can be used to manage your WordPress servers and sites. Right now what you're looking at on the screen is a list of 5 servers that we've deployed. They're all at DigitalOcean. You could have had some of them at Linode or Vultr or any of the other 5 cloud server companies that we support. But for now, it was relatively easy for us to fire up 5 servers for the purposes of this demo. The name of the servers for this list is on the first column. We've assigned some of the servers to groups: staging, live, general, test. On each of the servers you can click the install WordPress button to create a new WordPress install. And on the right hand side here you can see that we've got the number that represents the number of WordPress installations on the server at this point in time. Right now the first server has just 1 installation, the second server has 3, and so on. In the middle column you've got just some basic details about the server. You can see its provider, where it's been where the server's been provisioned. In this case it's Toronto. You can see the IP address, you can see the cloud server's internal ID, so if you ever wanted to reference this server on a support ticket, you can use this ID number, whether with us or with DigitalOcean directly. So let's click on one of these servers and we can run through some of the features that you get at the server level. You click on a server and it brings you to another stylized screen that gives you a lot more options. You can see that you can refresh the list of services that run the server. So let's go ahead and do that right now. What it's doing is it's going out there and saying, hey server, what's the status of Nginx? What's the status of MariaDB? What's the status of Memcached, and so on. And you can see that once it comes back, you can see that Nginx is running, MariaDB is running, and you have options to restart. If you wanted to install an object cache, you can simply click the install Memcached button. Obviously we have a firewall running. If you wanted to install something called an email gateway, you can do that as well. And all the way down here at the very bottom, you can add a description of the server, both a short and a long description. You can take some notes as you go through and do things on your server. You can add some labels to your server. Those labels show up on the left hand side of the screen. And you can also add links, custom links to the server. So for example, from the screen you'd be able to, or from the server list screen, you'd be able to click one of these custom links and go to, for example, your main WP control panel, or maybe go directly to the server page on DigitalOcean, or maybe you can create a link that takes you directly to your help desk. It basically creates a situation where you can manage not only our services, but you can use it as a jumping off point to any other related services for the server. So let's go over to this second tab here. Right now it's just basically a firewall tab and you can use it to open up ports. One of the things about classical hosting companies is they tend to like to keep a lot of the ports closed. By default we do too. But we allow you to open up any port you want, whereas if you were using a classic host, they are very, very picky about which ports they allow you to open. So that's one of the advantages of having your own servers that you can control, you get to do generally whatever it is you want with it. On this third tab, you can send out SSH commands to the server. This is one of those tabs we were very leery about creating originally because we know it's very dangerous in the wrong hands. So if it's one of those things that you really don't like, you can just click this button down here and it will basically hide the tabs across all servers. You'll never see it again unless you add an entry in your wp-config.php file. So just for giggles, let's try out one of these commands. Let's just say, hey, show me what's in the default server folder when you log in with SSH. And there you go, you've got a list of files that are in the default folder. It's not pretty, but it does the job. And one of the things it does is it gives you a history of the commands you've executed on the screen, so you can go ahead and you can simply just change the command and make it whatever you want and execute it again, and so on, and you'll build up a history. But basically, overall, this server screen, there's not a lot going on it. It's not where you're going to spend most of your time. You simply want to know the server's up and running. You want to know your web server and your database servers are up and running. You may want to install a couple of things once in a while, send over a few commands via SSH. But overall, this is not the place you'll spend most of your time in WPCloud Deploy. Where you're likely going to spend most of your time is in the application list and the application screen. So let's go take a look at that. You can basically, the application list is either going to be under a menu option called Applications, or in this case we've created a customized language file that allows you to rename that menu option to just something called WordPress sites. You can see the full list of sites here. We've got 5 sites, as you might expect, because if you go back over to the server list, you see we have 3 sites, 4 sites, 5 sites. We can click one of these numbers and immediately filter the application list to just the servers, or sorry, just the application on that particular server. We can also click on the application group and filter the list to just sites that have that particular group name with it. So let's just dig into one of these sites. Let's pull up cf06.wpvix.com. I'm pulling this up because it already has SSL turned on, which means that the DNS has already been configured to point to the site. So I'm going to go ahead and try to log into that area. You can see the site shows up, and I believe I know the user ID and password for this. Let's see if I'm correct. Yes, I am. So we're logged into that site. We can go back over, of course, to our application list, and let's dig into some of the things we can do with a particular application. So here we are inside the cf06.wpvix.com site. From in here, you can see that we've done some checks. The site's ready. The site's been secured with SSL. It has not been backed up yet. So if you go over to the backup and restore column, we can set up our S3 credentials, take a manual backup, or set up an automatic backup. One of the unique things about this particular product is we allow you to set up a backup for all sites on the servers. So whether you have the site present today, or whether you're going to add 100 new sites in the future, you can get them all backed up by simply doing one simple configuration, and you don't have to worry about it again. Moving on over to SSL, you can turn on SSL or disable it. It's a very simple setting. It's a toggle switch. Going over to the cache, you can enable a Nginx page cache. Some hosts will put their page cache in Redis. Others might put it in memcached. Some of them might have some sort of custom caching mechanism. Nginx page cache is well understood. It works well, it's fast, and is probably the most stable of all the caching mechanisms. Going over to the Sftp column, you can add your own Sftp users. You can add as many of them as you want. And once you've added that first user, you can do things with that user. You can basically remove them. You can change their password. You can set public keys for them. And once a public key has been set, you can remove the password. You can clone a site. Basically, if I wanted to clone this site, let's do that. It might take up a 5 minutes of our time on this demo. I'll probably try to trim the video down. But let's call it CF04 the WP or CF14 the WPVix.com, and we'll go ahead and click the clone button, and it's gonna do its thing. We're gonna twiddle our thumbs for a bit. This should take, somewhere between 2 and 5 minutes. I feel like I should be playing the Jeopardy theme here or something. You can probably fast forward through this if I kept it in the video. And you can see the command is complete. You can go through the logs here, or it'll be stored in our logs on the left hand side here. Let's close this window. And if you go back over to the list of sites, I'm just going to open this up in a new tab. You'll see that we have a new site right now. SSL is off. We can come back to this site once we've pointed the domain to it in DNS. But in the meantime, let's go back over to our demonstration here. So we've cloned the site. You can copy the site to a new server. Pretty simple. Just pick your server and then just click copy. You can set up a cron that replaces the WordPress cron. This is very useful if you have a high volume site. One of the things that WordPress does is it checks its crons and takes a little bit of time every time you load a page. If you've got thousands of page requests an hour, or thousands of page requests every 5 minutes, you really don't want that happening. So you can turn that off and then have Linux basically run the cron process every 1 minute, 5 minutes, or hour. You can change your PHP version. And you can set some values, some common values, or you can basically set a custom value. So if you're familiar with how PHP works, PHP has quite a few items you can configure. Depending on which modules you have installed, you might have a few hundred options. We don't want to overwhelm you with all the options, so if you know what you're doing, you can basically just set the options, set the value, and it can be stored in your PHP configuration file. The 4 options we have up here are the most commonly used ones, so that's why we've included it as an explicit section. Moving on, you can change the domain. We've allowed you to basically do a number of different types of changes. You can do a quick change. You can do a full change where it searches through the database and tries to find every occurrence of one value and replace it with another. You can do that in a dry run, so you can have an idea as to what will be changed, and then you can do it live. And over in this miscellaneous tab, there are a few things we couldn't quite figure out where to put, so we put them in here. You can put a password in front of the site. It's normally called basic authentication. You can completely disable the site, which will prevent crons from running and prevent anyone from even knowing that the site exists or being able to navigate to it at all. And of course, you can remove the site completely from the server. In our tools section, you can enable or disable a log. You can add administrator to the WordPress database. So if for some reason you forget what your password is for the existing administrator, you can come to the screen and just slam in a new one. On the database side, if you're familiar with standard WordPress hosts, which if you're using this product, we assume you are, you're able to create a PHP admin screen and manage your database from there. You can turn on what we call a 6G firewall. We didn't name this. This is actually the author's name. They also have a 7G firewall, which has more rules. But what this does basically is it sets up a number of rules at the Nginx server level. So these rules get evaluated before traffic even hits your site. So it can basically block a ton of bad requests, which will prevent WordPress from even having to deal with them in the first place. And the last tab we have over here gives you some rudimentary statistics. You can recalculate the amount of disk space the site is using, and it tells you it's got 105 megabytes, and backups are using basically nothing. And you can go out there as well and pull in what we call VNstat. VNstat is a simple commercial Linux utility that gives you a nice text-based screen that shows you the amount of traffic that's been sent in and out of your server over the past month and over the past day. So there you've got it. There's your overview of what WPCloud Deploy can do on the site level. There are a few other things that it can do that's very, very useful. We find this very useful. We can add descriptions to the site just as we can with servers. We can add notes to a site just as we can with servers. You can add as many notes as you like. You can put labels on a site. So let me do that right now actually, so you can see where those labels show up. So I'm going to add a label that's called demo video, and I'm going to add another one that's called utilities, just because. So I'm going to update this. And now if you go back out to your WordPress site, you'll see that we've got some labels above the domain name demo video utilities. So I'm going to go back in and take those off, or take one of them off, because really you can overwhelm yourself with the number of labels you can put on there. So I'm just going to do that. Now let's go back out to our site list. And you can see right now, if I wanted to see which sites have no label, or which sites have or staging sites, I can just click on staging sites, or I can just go back and look at all the sites on IBM, for example, which there are no sites on that server. I can go see what's on staging. You can see that there's 4 sites on there, including the one we just added. You can look at all sites that's in New York City, for example. Let's look at all servers and see which sites are in Toronto. You can see that there's only 1 site in Toronto across all the servers. You can also do things up here by searching for anything you like. You can, if we search for something called IBM, it should bring up well, I was wrong. Oh wait, IBM doesn't have any sites, so it's actually doing the job properly. Let's search for Microsoft. So there we go. We've got 1 site that's got the word Microsoft in it. Let's go back to the list of sites. Let's see if we can find something that has multiple servers or sites. Let's look for Intel. You can see we have 4 sites under Intel. Anyway, there's your overview of what you can do with sites. You can, of course, create application groups, and you can color code them. and then assign the colors to your sites. You can do the same thing on the server side. So you can have servers categorized as demos that will show up in blue, general servers that will also show up in blue for some reason, servers that are sensitive that will show up in more of a green, and you can add, of course, your own groups to this list. We, of course, keep all kinds of logs. Every time you send a command out to the server, you'll see that we create a log file that you can go back and peruse at your own, whenever you want to. We've got we've actually got 3 different types of logs, but 2 of them are the most important. Command logs are those used for long-running commands, like we did when we cloned the site. The SSH log are used for shorter commands. For example, the vnstat command, which ran in basically 20 seconds or so. So anything that's a shorter command, you'll end up looking under the SSH log menu option to see what happened to it and to get feedback. So overall, that's your overview of WPCloud Deploy. I raced through this, but I want to give you an idea of the things you can and can't do. You've got some very, very powerful capabilities. It's all running inside of your WordPress site. No one else is touching your servers except maybe if you're a cloud service provider. No one else is touching your site. There are some other things you can do because this is a WordPress application. You've got filters and action hooks that you can use to create customized tabs. You can go to any one of these and create a new tab. You can create a plugin that creates a new tab that sends different commands to the server, or shows you different information, collects different information from other plugins running on your site. It's really, really quite flexible. Anyway, hopefully this gives you a flavor of what you're looking at. And of course, if you have any questions, just drop us a note on our contact form or to our support address or via Twitter or our Facebook page, any of the the usual communication channels. Hope you have a good day, and thank you very much for watching.